everybody. My name is Young Chang. I'm a professor at Korea University based in Seoul, Korea. At the same time, I'm the director of the Center for Climate and Sustainable Development Law and Policy of Seoul International Law Academy. Today's events, the title of which is Initiatives on Climate Change Adaptation in Asia, an action plan on realizing low carbon development, is co-hosted by four organizations, CSDLAP, my organization, also government of Kazakhstan, and the C4 of Kazakhstan, and then Shin of Nepal. So, and then the Korea Environment, Climate and Environment Network. So I'm extremely pleased to moderate today's session. Not only because we are working together, also because the issue that we're gonna talk about is very important issue in the context of how to implement a new climate regime that has become effective somehow now, especially looking at the issues on Asia. This is a very important reason in the context of how to address climate change issues, simply because huge number of the population is growing. At the same time, there are a lot of pressures on how to address climate change. So looking at the issues of adaptation is not just a matter of how to cope with the climate change, but actually we have to come up with an idea on how to address, solve the problem, at the same time ensure the sustainable development. So in that sense that we're gonna address all these issues together from the very distinguished experts and the government officers from the relevant organizations and government today. So having said that, I would like to invite Mr. Olzahaz Argabetchokov, Deputy Director, Climate Change Department, Ministry of Energy of Kazakhstan, for his opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. On behalf of Ministry of Energy of the Republic of Kazakhstan, I would like to convey my warm welcome to today's Low Carbon Development Pathways event and our gratitude to key organizers and the audience. We see this platform as a very good opportunity to share views and exchange from the Asian region. Kazakhstan is a coal and oil-rich country. However, we understand our liability to the world community, and we are facing the impacts of global climate change today. Therefore, we set up a national target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions for 50% by 2030. We intend to reach this goal through concrete actions at the national and via international cooperation. The 17 Sustainable Development Goals should be supported by effective mechanisms and instruments to achieve the long-term prospects in the field of climate change, such as transfer of environmentally friendly technologies and financial mechanisms for the rational use of natural resources. Emission of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases from fossil fuels are contributing to change in the climate of those who depend on the planet's natural system for survival. Climate change threatens security of hundreds of millions of people around the world, undermining the essential foundation of local, national, and global stability. Next year in June, Expo 2017, with the topic Future Energy, will be opened in Astana. This platform will unite the world community to share experience and knowledge in the field of clean energy and will help developing advanced low-carbon technologies. On my behalf and behalf of the Ministry, I'd like to invite you all to this prominent event. Not to take too much of your valuable time, in conclusion, I would like to emphasize once again that Kazakhstan promotes its contribution to the support the international community's efforts to prevent the negative effects of climate change and calls on the countries to undertake activities at the national and regional level to improve the environmental conditions for the future generations. Today's event is a good platform for exchange our views on how we could achieve this goal. My best wishes of success, good work to all attendants. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Agabechov. I understand that his minister is arriving now in the venue. So because of his government duty, unfortunately, he needs to leave this venue now. But thank you very much for your welcoming remarks. And based on what you have suggested, that we will continue our discussions in a very productive way so that we can share what you have suggested also based in addition to what we will discuss about. So thank you very much. No, no. Right to go to the main session. We have three three presentations today. First presentation will be done by Rajan Thapa, Program Manager of Clean Energy in Nepal. So he's gonna present his presentation titled with Climate Change Adaptation Policy to Practice. So I'm gonna just change the seat so that he can give his presentation here. So Rajan, floor is yours.
Good, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Rajan Thapa. I'm representing Clean Energy Nepal. So Clean Energy Nepal is a non-government organization working in a three key sector: energy and climate change, urban mobility, and clean air and water sanitation and personal hygiene. So today I'm going to present on climate change adaptation policy to practice. That means how Nepal have prepared their policies on the basis of climate change adaptation and how the Nepal government and the civil societies are implementing their policies, plans, and programs. So basically today I'm dealing with the adaptation policy and framework, LAPA implementation, NCCSP, and the success story of implementation of LAPA in Nepal, and the last one is NAP formulation in Nepal and the JPA phase 2. So realizing the fact that Nepal is the least development country and the least development country and ranked as the most vulnerable country in the world because of the impact of climate change. So that is the reality. And the climate change has been posing the additional challenges to the country's socio-economic development. So that was the report published by government of Nepal in the year 2011. And the rate of melting snow is high, and there is unpredictable weather patterns, like no one is now predicting that whether there would be a rain or there would be a dry season. So that is a huge problem that we are facing in the Nepal. So realizing that climate change adaptation is the fundamental safeguard the climate vulnerable communities and the ecosystem, government of Nepal, they have introduced several policies, frameworks, plans, and the action plans. Some of them are National Adaptation Program of Action, NAPA, so that was formulated in 2010, same as Climate Change Policy 2011, National Framework on LAPA, and the LAPA is implementing in the 14 district of mid and far western of Nepal. So in COP7 in 2001, Marrakesh decided that there is an urgent need to prepare and the implementation of NAPA. And for about a decade, like Nepal, including other LDCs countries, they were come up with the plan, like a plan in terms of adaptations, in terms of the actions related to climate change adaptation. For us, NAPA is one of the prioritized document, like where we have listed several thematic issues, and that was prioritized by government that we need urgent and immediate action to respond to that. And same as LAPA, we call local adaptation plan for action. That is, now government is implementing that in the far and mid-western of Nepal in 14 districts. So as I have mentioned, that LAPA framework provides a way to integrate local people, adaptation needs for climate change, resilience into local to national planning system. So local adaptation like plan means like we have integrated our agenda through national to local level, so that community people also want that this is our agenda and we should work on it. Same as LAPA framework ensure that the process of integrating climate change resilience into local planning in bottom-up, inclusive and responsive and the flexible approach. So in a LAPA, like they have set a kind of framework that start from bottom to top. Like we have a regional infrastructures, then in the national, we have a separate body who is dealing with the climate change and adaptation. And government of Nepal, they have formulated a separate chapter, like who is implementing LAPA in a local area called NCCSP, Nepal Climate Change Support Program. And basically LAPA is the process like that has utilized the assessment that assessment like vulnerability assessment and the risks like a climate risks and how the community people are coping with the change. So that is the one thing. And the another thing is the LAPA is a fully people centric. It's a like no matter like how many documents or how many policies or plan we have formulated, but this one is the exact plan of action that is interlinked with the local people in Nepal. And as I have mentioned that LAPA are prepared in national level to the local level. In the national level, we have a LAPA framework, and in the local level, we have the implementation plan. So that's how we are working from national to local and local to regional level. So, so this is the like a working area of a LAPA. So you can also see in a blue and a green and a yellow color. So those are the far and west and far and mid western region of Nepal. So till the date, a government have implemented 100 LAPA so far in 14 districts. And if I if you talk about the like a structure, like how the implementation modality is going on, then we have the MOSTE, like now we called Ministry of Population and Environment. So previously it was Ministry of Science, Technology and Environment. So in a MOSTE, they have a separate body like who is dealing with this LAPA implementation called NCCSP, and that is directly linked with the MOFAL called Ministry of Federal Affairs and Local Development. So under the MOSTE and NCCSP, they have a separate project steering committee, and that project steering committee deals with the project management unit, and the project management unit have a separate committee in the district and in the regional. So that is the top up approach to bottom up approach. Like we have a structure from in the central level and in the ground level as well. For the regional or for the local level, like it starts like that. In the regional, we have regional climate change coordination committee. So and then district, like Nepal is divided into 75 districts, and we have 5 development regions. So under the East Development Region, we have Regional Climate Change Coordination Committee. And under the Regional Climate Change Coordination Committee, we have a District Environment Energy Climate Change Coordination Committee. And under the DECCC, we have a Village Municipality Environment Energy Climate Change Coordination Committee. So that means we have a separate body in each region which can deal with the climate change adaptation actions from national to regional and regional to local level. So like if I have to mention about like whether that kind of infrastructure or that kind of structure has worked so far, then I would say yes. Like because the adaptation work in Nepal has recognized in nationally and internationally. Why? One of the reason is it focus poorest household and they are benefiting with the energy like a solar energy system. And they have also worked in irrigation to change life for farmers. So according to recent data, like almost 68% they are farmers in Nepal, and they are dying because there is no irrigation system, because the water, because of water scarcity, because of the lack of water resources. So government is working on the irrigation system, and that was able to make a change to income of farmers. And the third one is improve cooking stove. Like still most of the Nepali people in the rural area, they are dependent on wood and cow dung, like to cook their meals. So government, they are working on improved cooking stove, we called ICS, so which is healthier for women, because in Nepal, in terms of rural area of Nepal, most of the women people, they are engaged in kitchen work, and they don't have a extra job to go to the office and earn money. So basically they work in the house and inside the house. So the government is targeting those women like who are investing their time inside the kitchen. And the third one is from labor to entrepreneur. Like they have work in the capacity building training, like so that labor can also earn, like maybe they can become a self entrepreneur. So that's how they are working now. And the woman empowerment, like they are giving a focus on woman empowerment as well, and the education for farmer, improving farming, because as I have mentioned you earlier, that the climate is unpredictable in Nepal. So most of the farmers, they doesn't know like whether I should uh, whether I should go for rice, or I should go for maize, or I should go for other things. So government is working closely with in this sector to improve the earning of farmers. And the last one is Adaptation Fund 2016 Global Photo Contest, that Nepal has become a people champions in terms of that photo contest, where we have showcased how Nepal is implementing its adaptation work from national to regional and regional to local level. Now government is preparing the national adaptation plan called NAP, and I'm very delighted to share you that GCF has just announced that Nepal will receive 2.9 USD million to prepare its NAP document, and that is for next 18 months. That is the recent news I have heard this morning. So, and the Nepal is the first country receiving this kind of fund in on the behalf of least development country. So that is a very good news. So the government is on the way to formulate the NAP in Nepal. So basic objective to formulate the NAP is to reduce the vulnerability to the impact of climate change by building adaptive capacity and the resilience, and to facilitate the integration of climate change adaptation in coherent manner. So basically government is approaching the two basic objective, that is, one is reduce the vulnerability, the second one is facilitate the integrations. And government is also undertaking the knowledge that we have gained during the NAPA preparation and also during the LAPA preparation. And we have a nine working group, including 7 thematic working group and 2 cross-cutting working group. In the thematic group, they have divided in the following sector, like agriculture, climate-induced disaster, forest and biodiversity, tourism, urban settlement, water resources, energy, and there is a cross-cutting issues. Like initially, they thought that those 7 thematic working group would be enough to formulate the NAP document in Nepal. But later on, they realized that they have missed some issues like gender and social inclusion and livelihood and governance. And then later they decided that they also would include this issue as a cross-cutting issue. But realizing the fact, or like if you go through all these 9 working group and thematic working group, you will not find the education and the capacity building things. So being a civil society in Nepal and being a responsive organization in Nepal, we are advocating government to include capacity building and education as a separate thematic working group or cross-cutting group in the NAP formulation process. Because if the people or if the community, if they doesn't know about the climate change, if they don't have the enough information about the how climate change is affecting their livelihood, then the policy would not be like become as realistic as they thought. So we have already urged our government to formulate a separate thematic chapter or thematic working group, which can include education and capacity building, so that people will be benefited from this document. And the government of Nepal, they have said the following approach to formulate the NAP document, like establishing network, utilizing the existing coordination system, building capacity, like that is on the central level, and building ownership, promoting multi-stakeholder partnership. And the one principle that we must like is leaving no one behind. That is the key principle government of Nepal is adopting while preparing NAP in Nepal. So that is the key principle they have adopting. But we still thought that there is something missing. And then we introduced JPA, Joint Principle for Adaptation in Nepal. So that was a first introduction, and that is a separate project that was conducted in the year 2013 to 2015. So the title for that project was Piloting and Refinement of Joint Principle of Adaptation, JPA, for quality delivery of adaptation service in Nepal. So, and the basic objective was to find out the gaps, like about the existing adaptation plan and implementation, supporting government to design and identify the assets. So while we are executing this project, we have identified that some of the policies has only written in the document, but those policies were not implemented effectively. And then we started advocating with our government, and then we introduced the JPA phase 2, where we are advocating with the government of Nepal in terms of policy to practice. We have enough policy, we have enough framework, we have enough plan of action, but the lacking part is in its implementation. So we are giving our first priority to implement those policies which we have already. And the second one is building climate resilience in urban center of Nepal. So this is a new idea, and though we have a good document, or though we have a good policies about building climate resilience in Nepal, we have not practiced yet. So this is the new idea that government go together with the government and other civil society we are working with. So to build the climate resilience in urban center of Nepal, we are working closely with the NDF, Arbonaut, and Oxfam. And we are also taking some technical inputs and technical suggestions from government of Nepal, including Ministry of Population and Environment. So how we are working then? So we have a strategy for implementation. One is dialogue and capacity building. So we are continuously advocating with the government, and we are also creating awareness in the local level and in the community level. And the second one is working through multi-stakeholder advisory committee at a national level. That we have a several structures and we have a several thematic groups in the national, regional, and local level. We are tying up with them and working closely with the advisory committee at a national level. And the third one is knowledge generation and disseminations. So people are saying that Nepal is a lack in research, we don't have enough information, we don't have a knowledge, but yes, there is a less information, but we do have information about the climate change. We do have the information that our glacier is melting down. We do have the information that the weather pattern is unpredictable. And we do have the information that we are much vulnerable and our people are dying because of climate change. So we are generating this kind of knowledge and disseminating this kind of information to the local, to regional, and regional to national, and national to international level. And the fourth one is field assessment, because without proper field assessment, we cannot give the concrete conclusion that this is how people are affected by climate change. So we regularly do the field assessment with the technical supports from government and other civil society. And the fifth one is government organizations and civil societies networks are involved. Within a Clean Energy Nepal, we have a separate networks called Climate Change Network Nepal, Climate Change Network South Asia, and we have NGO NCC called NGO on Climate Change Network. So we have those kind of networks, semi-formal networks and informal networks. We are utilizing that kind of platform to disseminate the knowledge and to enhance our capacity so that we could work more on climate change adaptations. And the final one is monitoring and evaluation. If there is no proper monitoring and evaluation, we cannot say that that project was or that initiation was very much helpful to cope with the climate change or not. So we are giving our focus on monitoring and evaluation. So while saying that never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world, indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Uh, I was fascinated by knowing that how much Nepal has gone through to implement adaptation policy, and really congratulations on the getting fund from the GCF. I guess it's a readiness project, right? So after readiness, then you can go to the main project, right? And there are a lot of opportunities that we can talk about. I think after the whole presentation, before, because I was so fascinated by your presentation, I'd like to ask one or two small questions so that we can keep the momentum to make some sort of good flows. So looking at your adaptation framework, right? You have your names and others. I start to think that, wow, it's fascinating, not only because you are looking at local and then you generate things out of it. That's the essence of adaptation issues. At the same time, looking at the individual program, governance aspect, also some of the technology related things. And then, especially solar energy drew my attention because, if you can expand this and then make it big enough, being implemented in every community in Nepal, I think you can generate industry of solar. Then you can make it further saying that this is not adaptation per se. It has also future mitigation potential for Nepal. And then doing so, maybe, looking at the possibility of getting funding from GCF, maybe you can open up the bigger window also by inviting some potential private sector investments, right? So my question is very simple in that sense. That would you still want to keep all these great things under the name of the adaptation, or are you open, actually change some things and talking about the nexus between adaptation, mitigation, or you want to focus on the adaptation per se? So it's a matter of, there are windows, right? So you want to go through adaptation only, or you want to change it, or you want to expand it? That's my simple question before going to the second presentation.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, so there is one reality that like we emit almost negligible amount of GHG in terms of global to the mitigation approach as well. So if we only talk about the adaptation, then it would not be enough. So like we are also working in the mitigation. Like say one thing that our NDC or INDC document, we have mentioned that we will also work in the mitigation approach as well. So while mitigating, government of Nepal will be giving a focus on solar energy and also in the transport sector as well. Like most of the transport sectors, they are dependent on fossil fuel. So government is going to introduce the uh, like solar vehicles, like electric vehicles. So that would be very much feasible in the Kathmandu as well. So that is the one sector where we are giving our priority, and the second one is lightening of rural area. Like most of the rural area, they are still out of light. Like though there is a high potentiality of hydroelectricity, but still people they are depend on wood and other like a source of energy. So government is giving the first priority to the those people who are away of light, and they are focusing on the solar energy. And the third one is focusing on uh, community forest. So like a community forest means like a mitigation of or sinking of greenhouse gases. So we are focusing on these three sectors. So like
That means we are not giving a priority to the adaptation, we are equally giving our priority to the mitigation as well.
Okay, thank you very much. So, studying and the learning about Nepal's plan is only good thing to go forward. So now I'd like to go to second presentation. Second presentation will be presented by Madam Cheo Kim. She's the president of Korea Climate and Environment Network. So there are two co-presidents in this organization. She represents civil, sector, and another co-president actually Ministry of Environment of Republic of Korea. So she has been working on the various issues to promote all these good things to take care of the climate change issues in Republic of Korea. And we will share some of the stories of her organization today. So let me introduce Madam Kim here.
Korea Climate and Environment Network hosted a launching ceremony on September 12, 2014 to promote the national campaign to reduce individual greenhouse gases by 1 ton per person. It has drawn about 280,000 people to its efforts through various projects. As a result, Korea's greenhouse gas emissions fell by 730,000 tons. Then shall we take a look at the efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions?
We have been promoting computer programs called Green Touch and Green Printer. Green Touch is a freeware that reduces the energy consumption of computers when they are not used. And Green Printer is a freeware that enables users to print on both sides of a sheet or multiple pages per sheet. Today, Green Touch is installed in 2.05 million computers and Green Printer in 750,000 computers. These software programs reduced approximately 40,060 tons of greenhouse gas emissions.
Consumers Union of Korea has promoted various cooling energy saving campaigns in the summer. Above all, we think that it is particularly important to clean air conditioner filters. We're targeting to get 726 signatures. So far, we've gotten 427 since we started the campaign in June, and now we are seeing 35 tons of reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. Since the campaign for reducing individual greenhouse gas emissions by 1 ton per person is to motivate people to change their habits, we're trying to make people see how much cooling energy they can save by simply cleaning the air conditioner filters. In an effort to cut down on individual greenhouse gases by 1 ton per person, we are promoting low greenhouse gas emitting town and reducing detergent usage projects. About 1,000 middle and high school students are participating in the projects, and about 2,600 housewives are with us as well, which is a much bigger number than we have expected. So far, 175 tons of CO2 have been cut down. Through the project, students are more aware of the fact that their small efforts can make a big difference in reducing greenhouse gas emissions by turning off classroom lights when leaving and closing tap water. We are currently promoting GHG emissions reductions by a Million Goyang Citizens project. Thanks to the MOU made with middle schools, 85 volunteer students take turns and carry out the campaign on their designated day in front of their schools. In April, when we first started the project, greenhouse gas emissions were reduced by 26 tons. As more education and campaigns were conducted, the amount has increased to 150 tons.
After receiving consultation, our apartment began Energy Village business. Public electric charge has been reduced by approximately 25%.
Korea Climate and Environment Network will not be complacent and will continuously push ahead with greenhouse gas emissions in everyday life. Before and after April 22nd every year, we are attracting more participation by holding nationwide campaigns and events. Through our homepage and SNS channels, we closely communicate with people. And every year, we reach out to 2.5 million people and to let them recognize how important it is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Additionally, we are accelerating efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by spreading Green Office, including Green Touch. In March, we made an MOU with China and developed the Chinese version of Green Touch, hoping to spread it to the whole Asia. With Consultant in Korea, we provide consulting and analysis about greenhouse gas emissions in the non-industrial sector. By doing so, we contribute to increasing the roles of consultants and creating new jobs. And approximately 12,000 tons of CO2 is reduced with GHG cash purchase business by improving non-industrial sector facilities. We will work continuously to involve more entrepreneurs, institutions, and organizations in the efforts to reduce greenhouse gas every day. One small effort can make a huge difference to the future of our planet. Korea Climate and Environment Network, working for a better tomorrow.
Okay, so after this, then I would like to invite Madam Bach for her presentations.
Okay.
Okay. Very good afternoon. My name is Kim Jae-ho. I'm a president of this Korea Climate and Environment Organization, together with the Minister Environment and also president of the corporate association. And these organizations, we established 2008 as a name of the Green Start. And we are focusing on the awareness program like education, campaign programs to aware the people to know about the issue related to the climate change and environment. And because acting is very important, we make sure that our organization's names are more intensively to working on climate change and environment. So we changed our name to the Korea Climate and Environment Network. And we start the acting programs from 2014 and begin nationwide national campaign to reduce 1 ton of greenhouse gas per person project. And until the last year, 400,000 people participate this campaign. And from this year, we conduct greenhouse gas diagnosis consultation for the home, household, commercial setting, and schools. And about 55,500 places like schools and household, and also the shops we visit, consultant visit and consulting to how to reduce the CO2 emission in their places. We, our organization, we have 53 the NGOs, government and corporate working together. And also we have 17 local networks and also 228 local government working together on this issue. The background and the purpose of this, the climate change issue, we think that importance of the implementation of low carbon lifestyle is very important because our government, they have a new national greenhouse gas reduction goal. So it's, they said that 37% reduction by 2030. So because of that, the lifestyle change is very important for the reduction of the emissions. So because of that, we developed the action plan and developed and executed various projects to reduce the 1 ton of per person. And also we distribute the daily practice manuals to the peoples. and also conducted the diagnosis and the consultation on greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, we have nationwide campaigning reduce 1 ton of greenhouse gas per person project. How we measure and how we develop the daily practice measures to reduce greenhouse gas. Totally, we find out that 40 kind of activities can be reduced the greenhouse gas in our life. For example, the transportation is very important. We have 11 items for the transportation reduction, emission reduction, like eco driving, and also use the public transportation, etc. This kind of the activities can reduce 1,241 kilogram CO2 per year per persons. And cooling and heating program is also very important because the maintaining the optimal temperature and limiting cooling and heating usage can also reduce the CO2. And also electricity, like we use the most energy efficient product, especially the household product and also devices such as Green Touch can reduce the CO2 emission, and also the resources like reducing food waste and using water saving devices also can reduce the CO2. So if we, the peoples, do the 40 kind of practices during the 1 year, they can reduce almost 2 tons of CO2 per person per year. So we are ambitiously to working on and promoting these activities to the peoples. This is the poster for the promotion of this emission reduction. And maybe you also have some pamphlet. We also distribute this kind of pamphlet, how and where can be found the greenhouse gas emission in our lifestyle and how we can reduce this CO2 emissions. So, and we make the checklist and we give the checklist to the peoples, and daily or once a month they check how much they use the, for example, electricity and waters and other activities, and they how much they reduced their energies and water, something like that. So they can counting how much they reduce the emissions. And another the thing that we find is that even the minimal effort, we can reduce the CO2 emission, greenhouse gas. Like the program that we call the Green Touch program that automatically switch computer into sleep mode when the computer is not in use. So for that, we give 2 million units supplies and almost 40,000 tons of CO2 reduced during last few years. And because this is very important program and project, we met China friends and Chinese NGOs and have an MOU with China last year. And this year, January, we gave a Chinese version to adopting this Green Touch program, their computers. And also the green printer, for example, we provide the green printer program. And this also the paper saving programs such as double-sided printing and stepping, etc. And this supplied 750,000 units and 60 tons of CO2 reduced last year. And also, diagnosis and consulting program is very important. So before we practice this year, we have a pilot project last year together with the local government in Seoul City. And we are training the green leaders consultant, and they visit around 1,850 households and consulting how and how much they can reduce CO2 emission in their home. And we found out that approximately 300 kilograms of annual household CO2 reduction in one house. So if the more households participate, we can reduce more CO2 emissions. So after this, we start this year, we start consulting and diagnosis project around 50,000 household and 5,000 commercial setting and schools, 500 schools. So total we have 55,500 places. Our 1,040 consultant visit there and consulting there. And finally, our goal to reduce approximately 20,000 tons of CO2 through this the consultation. So this consultation was very successful, and also the other way, we are working together with big companies like a bank, and also the franchise companies, like coffee shops and restaurants and the chicken shops, and we consulting them and also ask them to reduce the CO2 emission in their shops. And also we have another project, but most important is we propose the citizens emission trading systems in our country, because for example, in the government, the industry, they have trading emissions and they can buy and sell the emissions. But even the citizens and non-industrial sectors, even they reduce the emission, there is no benefit. So I think to the benefit to this non-industrialized sector is also very important. We started to purchase of greenhouse gas reduction by non-industry facilities. So this year, we buy the purchase of approximately 20,000 tons of CO2. And this is very successful. So next year, we are going to expanding more and encourage the people to reduce the CO2 emissions. So the result of all this kind of project, we expected that we will estimate 50,000 CO2 reduction this year, and we are planning more activities next year as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Kim. Let me, yeah. Thank you very much. So I think first presentation was talking about the sort of the adaptation at the community level, and then he indicated that actually there is some potential for Nepal to expand it at the national level, even having some sort of mitigation component. So there are good things. And then if you are interested in applying to GCF project, you have to find a local partner, right? And not only working at the national, you cannot get the money. out of the GCF. You have to identify which community you can work together with the central government. Then GCF might consider whether they will give the money to you to support your activity. In that sense, the local implementation has become the key. And then having said that, Madam Kim's presentation was talking about the lifestyle sector. You know, it's about you have a one end, and then there might be almost nothing, but when they work together, they huge impact on the society. So lifestyle, you know, it could be nothing. Switching off the computer can be nothing. But if we aggregate all the efforts together, then it will ensure the good efforts. And then this organization imply that they have built the successful stories at in Korea, and that they are ready to go abroad. That they identified what kind of partners they can work together at the community level, at the national level, in Asia and beyond. So, you know, we have been talking about that, and I thank you very much for that, Madam Kim. Now, I'd like to go to last presentation. So I assume that based on the opening remarks that put forward by the government of Kazakhstan, I assume that this presentation might touch upon a little bit more on the mitigation aspect of all these issues. Having said that, I also have a distinguished panelist today from the C4 of Kazakhstan, Mr. Sergey Vasilev, Chief Project Manager of C4. So floor is yours. So you can come here and then you can give your presentation.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everybody. I have to excuse myself from the very beginning because, I mean, it was my colleague who was supposed to deliver this presentation, but there was last-minute change, so I have to do quite some reading, which is not very good, but hopefully be understandable. No. It's not changing the slides. Nope. Oh, okay. So what I would like to present is the results of the analysis, which was performed under a World Bank Program for Market Readiness project. Basically, it was a modeling project to identify the ways for Kazakhstan how to reach the INDC target, which was set forward by the government by the most cost-effective and productive manner. And in my presentation, I'll give the background of the Kazakhstani conditions. I'll also stop on assumptions and scenarios which were used for modeling, results of the analysis, key recommendations which were made by the project team. I think, yeah, it's a bit. As you probably well know, that Kazakhstan is a rather big country, but very low populated, and with very strict climatic conditions. Right now it's -30 back home, so it's nice to be here in the warm environment. Therefore, energy consumption per capita comparing to the world or OECD countries is rather high, and emissions per capita are also very high. This is also because our, I mean, the main source of the emissions in Kazakhstan is energy sector, and energy sector is like 80% based on coal generation. and the equipment of the machinery, the production facilities, they are quite outdated from Soviet times. I mean, the majority of them are already in their 50 years of operation right now. But this is also an opportunity for the country to go through a modernization process, and this gives us very huge potential in increasing energy efficiency. Yeah. As I said, the energy efficiency potential is rather high in Kazakhstan. This is due to vast territories and therefore considerable losses while transmitting electricity and heat with the networks. The government of Kazakhstan put forward several targets related to reducing the emissions, such as, for example, the share of gas-powered power plants should be increased up to 25% from the total electricity generation. But I'll come back to that slide later, where I'll show how different scenarios would reach or not reach the stated targets by the government. Just to give you a quick overview, the target proposed in the INDC of the government is minus 15% from the emissions in 1990. For the last years, emissions of the country have been growing at around 4% per year. And inventory data for 2013, we had 302 million tons of CO2 emissions, which is about 19% less than in 1990. Now for the period from 2000 and 2010 and 2007, the economy of Kazakhstan grew quite rapidly, an average of about 10% per year. Then there was a decline due to the world economic crisis, and it slowed down to 1 to 3%. In 2014, country has experienced a slowdown in economic growth due to falling of the oil prices, which is one of the main drivers of the Kazakhstani economy. And also the national currency was devaluated by 82% in 2015, then followed another 30 or 40% devaluation in 2016. Yeah, and as I said, Kazakhstan has significant mitigation potential due to relatively low cost in updating the existing outdated equipment and technologies. I can use this one. Oh. And I would like to stop briefly on the assumptions and scenarios which were used for the modeling, and maybe just stop a little bit on the model itself. It was actually a combination of two models. One model was a bottom-up modeling of the national energy sector and markets, and the second model was a top-down modeling at the economy-wide level. It was performed by two different teams. One was a Kazakhstani local one, and the second was a German modelist team, but they managed to combine their models so that to combine both approaches, top-down and bottom-up approaches. The common assumptions which were taken for the model is that there were plans to construct a nuclear power plant in Kazakhstan, but for the modeling, it was ignored because currently, due to economic fall down, we have like 3 gigawatts of unused capacities. So we've ignored that plan at the modeling. Then we also took into account the prognosis that in 2030 there will be oil peak in production in producing oil in Kazakhstan, and that annual production would be around 120 million tons per year. We also considered that the current gasification process would continue at the same tempo, and that there will be no import of natural gas in the medium and long term. So that we will be self-sufficient, also self-sufficient in oil products in the medium and long-term run. So as I said, there were several scenarios constructed. The baseline scenario or the business as usual scenario that there will be no restrictions on greenhouse gas emissions until 2050. That the GDP growth rate would be around 4% according to different prognoses. That the projected share of renewables, solar plus wind would be pessimistically low, around 1% by 2020 and 3% by 2030, because the current share of renewables are less than 1% in Kazakhstan. The second scenario we called like ETS scenario. Currently, we have emission trading system in place in Kazakhstan, and but it is postponed until 2018 because there is a need to change and improve some legislative acts to make it work properly. Because during the run of the ETS, we found out that like with EU, we did too much allocations to the companies. There was over allocation. This scenario includes such positions that ETS covers 3 sectors, such as energy sector, oil and gas sector, and industrial sector. The allocation of quotas till 2020 would be based on average emissions in 2013 and 2014 as a kind of baseline or base level. And after 2020 and until 2050, the cap will continue, but adding reserve of quotas for new capacities to be installed. No, I'll just continue as it is. Nope. Reopen. Well, not to give too much attention to the different scenarios due to the sake of time. So we also had like 3 ETS scenario, putting different restrictions for the emission trading system. Like one of the scenario, because at the moment emission trading system includes only CO2 emissions, direct CO2 emissions. Another scenario was to include probably the methane emissions from different sectors. There was also a scenario on along with quotation or capping the greenhouse gas emissions, also to look at non-regulated sectors, yeah, like introducing, for example, CO2 tax for sectors who are not covered by emission trading system. And the results showed that only scenario which covered, which included all the possible options could lead to achieving the INDC target by 2030. And sorry, I cannot see from here. Just yeah. And that the current ETS scheme is not enough to achieve INDC target, so some modifications should be made, some additional instruments should be brought in, and that the modification of the current ETS scheme and additional policies towards mitigation of emissions from non-ETS sectors should be considered in order to decrease greenhouse gas emissions to the level stated in the INDC. And now it works on my laptop, but not works on the screen again. Okay. No. The analysis also showed that the abatement costs to achieve INDC target rather high, from 100 to 140 US dollars per ton of reductions. This slide just shows the difference in reducing greenhouse gases by different scenarios, and that, for example, some scenarios could lead to a carbon leakage to those sectors who are not covered by emission trading system. Therefore, something should be done to address that too. And this slide presents reduction of greenhouse gases by sectors, which sector could contribute more, which sector contribute less. And the biggest potential in greenhouse gas reductions is in the sectors which are covered by emission trading system, and namely it is electricity and heat production, which accounts for 68% of the total potential of the reduction. And also another big sectors are coal mining and oil and gas extraction. Okay. Coming to the end, to the key findings. Well, probably I will not stop on them because I've mentioned them during before. I would like to stop on that very interesting table, which shows strategic targets put forward by the government and how different and whether they're achievable or not achievable under different scenarios. And as we can see, it is the INDC scenario which could lead to achieving most of the targets set forward by the government, apart from reduction of current CO2 emissions and electricity electricity production sector, which is right now minus 40%. That's a target put forward by the government, but without changing completely the electricity sector structure, this is not achievable. And due to some restrictions on nuclear and some restrictions on using gas for producing electricity, the analysis shows that this is very hardly to be achieved. And the main recommendations which were made by the project team is that the current policy of electricity tariff regulations should be revised or changed, that gasification should continue according to the forced scenario, that emission trading system should be relaunched in 2018, but using benchmarking approach to allocation instead of grandfathering, which is used right now. ETS should be extended by including heat-only production facilities, which are smaller sized, and right now they are out of the threshold of the emission trading system. And that the practice of issuing additional free quotas to enterprises should be avoided in the future. We should also have a look at other gases to be included into emission trading systems, such as methane, for example. And that ETS should be accompanied with other measures, CO2 tax or energy efficiency policies in the sectors which are not covered by emission trading system. Biogas from the waste management also is an option which could reduce use of fossil fuels. And that two more, very interesting technologies are heat pumps and combined cycle gasification turbines, which should be promoted in the country. Well, I would stop here. Thank you very much. If you have any particular questions about the modeling, what models were used, what assumptions were made, please write down to my colleague who was very much involved in that. Thank you.
Thank you. As I said, that Kazakhstan's presentation focuses on more like mitigation related issues rather than adaptation per se. And then one of the interesting things is that the adaptation issue has been always been centered in the climate change negotiation and policy implementation all the time. And then we've been talking about the global model on how to reduce greenhouse gas emissions while promoting low carbon economy. And then all the time, the one thing that we need to remember, we are not supposed to forget, is that if we look at the country, they have their own specific national circumstances. What I noticed, as Sergey pointed out, that he's very happy to be here because up there in Kazakhstan is very cold. I think many sectors that Kazakhstan needs to work on in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions related to heating, and then lighting and other facilities that actually are critical for people in Kazakhstan live. So in the sense that I think that there are some good potentials for not only for Kazakhstan, but also other countries to work together. If we can bring some technologies that can be placed in the Kazakhstan to promote some of the good situation in these sectors, then there will be good for Kazakhstan, and then those countries who might be interested to go. And then I particularly interested in looking at the possibility of generating some of the credits out of these activities. And Kazakhstan always has an ETS, and maybe Kazakhstan can work together with some other countries like Republic of Korea, who has a ETS system in place, and then they can be linked, and then if they can develop some sort of cooperative mechanisms to work together, targeting at these heating and other sectors, then it'll be good. And then maybe it has another potential to get the funding from the GCF. So we have been actually looking at very different cases, right? Sort of starting with the adaptation per se, looking at the local, but it has some sort of mitigation potential at the national level. And then looking at report, it's very rare for you to hear about the lifestyle sector in Korea in terms of how to tackle climate change. Usually you hear about energy intensive industries in Republic of Korea and how central government needs to formulate their policies. But Madam Kim today shared a very rare example how Korea can work together with the other stakeholders, not only at the national, but also outside Korea to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. In the sense that I really enjoyed the presentations. And finally, looking at Kazakhstan, as I said, that they have their own unique situation. They have to stand up, and they have challenges, and then there are also potentials. So everything is related to how to transform the sort of the challenges into the form of opportunities, if you may. And that's why we put the title of today's event, Initiatives on Climate Change Adaptation in Asia and an Action Plan on Realizing Low Carbon Development. There are different actions that we can think about. So in the sense that, there are many issues that we can further discuss about. And then now it's time for me to open the floor. If you have any question or comments, and please identify yourself and address what you want to do. So floor is yours. Okay.
Thank you for the good presentations. I'm Hasbi from the Partnership for Governance Reform in Indonesia. I would like to know about the experience in Nepal in implementation of the NAPA and LAPA. I think it is very, very interesting to bring the process in the bottom in the grassroots level to the region, district, regions, and national level. I want to know about how to integrate the adaptations programs formulated at the village district level into the government planning systems or mechanisms. Is it different, or in the such level you make integrations between the programs or projects from funded by adaptations and the government's regular programs? Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to have one or two more questions or comments so that we can, answer them all together. So another question or comments from the floor? None, then we go to Nepal then.
Thank you for the question. For us, like for Nepal, like NAPA is a strategic tool to assess climate vulnerability, and about 250 adaptation work plan has been suggested by our thematic working groups, and out of 250 we choose only nine priorities agendas, and we thought that they need an urgent and immediate response. So while saying that, like in NAPA document, government of Nepal, they have mentioned that almost or at least 80% of climate change fund will be mobilized to the local level. So that is the quote mentioned in the national document called climate change policy, and that was launched in the year 2011. So first we have a NAPA document, and then government realized that we should mention it in our policy book, and then they mentioned that in the policy. And then later on, like while we were executing the NAPA in the national level, we realized that no, there are so many organizations, or there are many many other CSOs and other local stakeholders, they are working in the national level, but we need to focus in the local area. Then after Cancun COP, then Nepal initiate to talking about LAPA, and then they design the LAPA framework, and now we are implementing on it. So government priority is there, but on the other hand, there are other civil societies. They are working independently, but they are very much related with the government work. So government is implementing LAPA in 14 district of mid and far western region, but in the eastern development region and in the western development region, some of the civil society organization, they are implementing LAPA by themselves. But while they are implementing LAPA, they are adopting the national framework like that was designed by government. So government is there, civil society is there, but we have a very good networking, and we have a very good coordination between the civil society and the government, and that is the best part that I would like to mention. Thank you.
Thank you. As I hear about the story in Nepal, I'm very much inclined to actually go into Nepal to know more about what's going on there. So any other questions or comments from the floor? If not, then I will give you the each present. There is one. Oh, okay, right.
Hi. So thank you very much for the very good presentation. And I'm Wang Yuan from Friends of Nature, a local NGO in China. I'm quite interested about the program for Green Touch from Korea. As I know, there's a lot of data collection from Green Touch, this program, right? Software. And I wanted to know through that software, how collect your data from the local families. And if for the test for the local family household, do you think it's also cooperation with our organization have a test for China for local families? Thank you.
Okay, any other question or comments? No?
Well, actually, with the China, we want to working together with the NGOs in China as well. And we contact the NGOs, several NGOs in China. But it was a little difficult for them to come to Korea and also to have the programs together with the NGOs. So first of all, we have had a program with organizations who supported by the China government. And then now we are looking for the NGOs, even if we don't know where about the China society. So how the China NGOs can work dependently. So anyway, but we want to work together. So maybe we can contact each other and can develop the plan for the future. Thank you very much.
Okay. So before we go to the final, session of the concluding remarks, I'd like to summarize some of the lessons that we have to share today. So we have been visiting the various issues, various places in Asia, and then nobody has been talking about how to bear the burdens, right? There are good initiatives and efforts that we can share at the different levels. Of course, there are challenges, but countries have been working really hard to address the challenge by themselves. This is the essence of a new Paris Agreement regime. Nobody will ask you to no, you will not be forced to change anything, and it's you up to you. And there are plenty of opportunities, no matter whether you go to adaptation or lifestyle or mitigation, depending on how you use those challenges as a matter of opportunities, you can generate, opportunities, and you can even get the financial resources, and then so that you can make your case as a showcase for the global world. And then looking at Asia, there are so many diversified societies in Asia, meaning that there are different opportunities available. Depending on how you generate your opportunities, and then how you can generate initiatives, actually you can make good cases for entire world. So finally, everything cannot be done alone. And even if we go to the local level, eventually you need to look up the national plan. Also, your national plan needs to associate with the global plan of the UNFCCC regime, also other financial resources. Everything is connected. So my final word: no matter what Trump will do in the United States, he cannot change everything. So I feel very confident that we are making one story together, even if there are some scratches and then the changes, but eventually we'll go to this direction. Final goal is to achieve low carbon development in Asia. This is what we try to achieve. Having said that, I'd like to invite Mr. Jin Lee, the advisor Korea Climate Environment Network, and he's also former Vice Minister, Ministry of Environment, Republic of Korea, for his concluding remarks.
Three presenters, the honorable guests, especially two honorable guests from Korea, the former vice ministers, distinguished guests, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a great honor to deliver our concluding remarks before all of you. We have discussed today about creating an action plan on realizing low carbon development in the context of climate change adaptation in Asia. As we know well, Asia has become a very important region to tackle climate change. More greenhouse gases are expected to be emitted by Asian countries. This is the region of rapid economic and population growth. Our country, Korea is seventh biggest carbon emission country and achieved fast economic growth, increasing GDP per capita from 100 US dollars to $25,000 within half a century. That means Korea has a part of responsibility for global warming as well as overflow of the Nepalese lakes, mainly coming from the melting of Himalayan glaciers, the huge carbon sink and storage. On November 4, the Paris agreements entered into force. All countries have started to discuss details on better implementation of the Paris Agreement, particularly by developing countries in the context of adaptation. To achieve this goal, there must be a new approach to the alignment policies for the transition, so-called APT, to a low carbon society at the international level. We must change the GHG-intensive economy to new economic era based on low-carbon technology, creating new financing models for renewable energy. But rapidly emerging Asian countries often pay more for renewable energy than US and Europe due to the cost and terms of debt. Developing countries must be benefited by bringing debt from developed countries and GCF to finance renewable energy projects and technology as well. Various cases of Kazakhstan, Nepal, and Korea that were presented today can be a good examples that other Asian countries can build a better climate resilient Asia. We must broad over. What is my role? What can be contributed to low carbon society, not only in economic growth, but also in lifestyle and even way of thinking, just like Madam Kim said. Finally, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to those who worked hard to organize today's event. I particularly would like to thank for Center for Climate and Sustainable Development Law and Policy, CSDLAP, for their strong contribution to this event and close partnership with my organization, like Madam Kim. Thank you.
Thank you. So this concludes today's event, and then we are organizing other events. Actually, tomorrow we will have two events in the Korean Pavilion starting at 2 p.m. First one is talking about, some of you may know the DDPP or project of the IDRI, and then we teamed up with them, and we're gonna share some of the good stories with the Young sports team. And then second event will be about the forest and renewable issues, teamed up with Asia Europe Foundation, UNDP, and other organizations in Korea. So if you are interested in them, you can come to Korea Pavilion and then see what's going on, what will be going on tomorrow. Having said that, once again, thank you very much for your participation, and I'm sure that we'll have another chance to continue our discussions later on. Thank you very much. And the participants, we will have a brief photo session in front of us, so please come up together.